I also, before class, like to put water on them so they can start melting, and I just try dumping them out. Okay, because I like it when it gets softer. So I like to soften them a little before class. And it just kind of soaks in, it just makes it easier. So I put water in all of these. I also have two of these water containers. You can't see both. One will be for yellow, one will be for brown and green, because I don't want the yellow to get dirty. I've got flat brushes and round brushes. Usually for a small piece of paper, you need a smaller brush. But I went ahead and got out a big one because sometimes I like to see, well, what happens if you don't follow the rules. I also got out this kind of wacky textured one because I thought it might make an interesting kind of linear petal. So we'll experiment with that. And I have a piece of watercolor paper folded in half, kind of card-like. These are bought on Amazon. You just order blank watercolor cards, and it's a nice 140-pound paper. These are nice. They're made by Arteza, are they? No, these aren't made by Arteza, but I've bought ones made by Arteza. These are made by Funtu. Anyway, they come with envelopes. They have a nice rounded corner. These are lovely. I also got out a bigger piece of paper in case I need more room. So we'll see what happens here. I'm going to try and then I also have that 5x7 paper that I just love to use over and over again. So I guess I'll start with that. And then if I need more room, I'll work on here. And after I'm warmed up, perhaps I'll go to the card. And that's like a card. Okay, so I'm a fan of starting with a dotted line because you don't have to commit, but it gives you a guide. Now feel free to use a pencil. I just like to dive into the paint. Just, just go for it. Okay, but you don't have to do that. I think I may start with the rule breaking one because when I'm putting this on the paper, I kind of see the shape of the petal, and I think that might work really nicely. Let's find out. All right, I'm just going to go for the paint that has a little bit of the darker yellow and a little bit of the lighter yellow. And I'm going to make the oval. I hope, yeah, you can see the dots. I'm going to make the oval dots of the upper rim of what I'm going to call a cup shape. So that so I have a guideline so that when I'm working over here, I should have like a second guide. So then my second guide, I'll only see that part. So I've got that and that. And this comes here. So I'm going to just push, see okay, can you see it well enough? I'll go for the darker yellow so that maybe you can see better. So I'm just pushing the petals, trying to get sort of a one-stroke petal. And so far, it's working great. All right, so I'm stopping them where the second guide is. And I'm keeping them all going, for this one, I'm keeping them all going in the same direction. So when I get to the edges, I'm going to keep pushing like that. And that's going to give me that cup shape. And then you see where the center is going to go. So I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to give myself an oval in dots. I don't have to follow, it's not like one dot per petal or anything like that. And then I'm giving myself a second guideline where these petals will stop. And look, I'm only going by, you know, I'm only going for like a guide there. And then when I come to the front, So I have this sort of cup-like shape. And I let the brush go a little dry for just a little bit of variation there. So that's the cup shape. So see if you can get that cup shape. Okay. Then what? Then what happens? I'm liking this brush, so I'm going to keep it. I've got two greens here. You can have as many as you want. And I'm not rinsing off the brush. I'm leaving whatever yellow is on there because it'll just mix in and yellow and green is just lovely together. Okay, so then for the sepal, I'm going to use the same brush, but maybe a lighter touch and try to get, that kind of, it's kind of almost thistle-like sepal. And then the stem is rather thick, so I'm just going to do that, and that should work fine. And then I can go back and maybe I can get it a little bit. And it comes together so quickly. I told you it'd be a quick demo. That doesn't always happen, right? All right, so I'll do it again. All right, a little bit of water. Maybe I'll put a little bit of this green and a little bit of that green. All right, so and then we're going to do the center. Comes together quickly. So one stroke at a time, these one stroke things. Okay. So you have to see if you go this way or if you go this way, like what gives you the stroke that you like. You can try both. I mean, it should be that this works. Okay, maybe if I turned it upside down, I'd have more control. So just kind of this random thing on the bottom. The stem must go from the center of the flower down. Now, sometimes if I had had this more at an angle on my page, maybe it would have come out here and turned because sunflowers do that. I should probably do one like that for you. But since I sort of have this slant, I I want the stem to end up upright. It needs to end up upright, but sometimes they do turn. So, and there I got a little dry brush, which is good. And this one didn't quite go thick enough on the bottom, so I'm going to do that. I can leave the dry brush or I can just, how they're very veiny, these things. This part of the sepal blended in too much, so I'm just gonna maybe change up the color slightly. Let me see what happens if I blot it right there, just to make it look like the sepal's coming in front like that. So that's a little better. Okay, then how do you do the center? Well, get to the center. Last week we were using a pen. You could do that again. You could use a pen and you could put anything in the center. I could fill it with a bunch of little O's. A pen would give you a lot of control because in this case, you have to do the center in between the petals. So that would give you, let me that redefines that kind of dome shape. So I could fill the whole thing with little circles with a pen. That would work. All right. What else would work? Maybe I want to use a pencil to get a texture in there, or maybe I just want the same brush I've been using. My brown. All right. Well, anyway, I would sometimes the centers are green, so I could do this with brown or green. And see how my brush wants to hit the camera here, so I have to raise this a little bit. Okay, and I can start with green and get the brown in later. And I'm just using dots so that I can control it in between the petals. And again, I want this kind of mound shape. And that's like the whole thing. So that was record-breaking quick demo, which is what happens when you do, the one stroke petals go super quickly. So I'd like you to try to get that cup shape. And but in the meantime, we're gonna invite Rochelle and anyone else to show maybe what they did with TJ. I'm gonna get a quick, I realize I should get a quick leaf in here. So I'm gonna put the veins in first, and then I'll just fill in the rest. I might have to show the veins again. Oh, I didn't do it with the other. All right. So while you're working, maybe I'll try doing these petals with this brush because I think it'll work. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the video. Hmm.